Do you know what's worse than forgetting to wear mufti on a mufti day? Coming to school in your school clothes on costume parade day. Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Roger.
And welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics
on our search to find the middle.
That's fatphobic.
I don't feel war. I just own halfway to Shewa.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
I act as if God exists.
Put your masks on.
How dare you! You have stolen my dreams, my childhood, with your empty words.
Andy, how you doing?
Oh, a little bit of in a bad mood, to be honest.
Bad mood. Do tell.
So this is like first world problem, but I ordered some delivered food for the boy for dinner, maybe 6:30 p.m. or something. And I chose the one that was like going to be the fast delivery so he could have dinner, get him to bed. And, I'm waiting. I'm usually not like sweating on the countdown time or whatever. Where's my food? But like I kept looking at it and nothing was happening. So it was like 7 o'clock turned into 8 o'clock. And I'm like, nah, this is ridiculous. So I went to try and do something in the app because I was like, it's for my son. He's got to go to bed. And I went to cancel it and because I was just going to go and do something else, right, for him. And there's no option to cancel it. This is menu log, right? So I'll name and shame them. There's no like cancel button or anything like that. And then I finally find this obscure chat function. And then I start chatting saying, hey, look, you guys said you could deliver it in like 15 minutes, which is what it said. That's why I ordered that one in the first place. It's now like, I don't know, an hour and a half later. And I want to cancel it because I have to do something else for him. You guys you failed, right? Too slow. And they said, oh, we can't cancel it. We can't give you a refund. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like you failed. Like you said you could deliver it. I'm sure I'm not like going to hold you to 15 minutes, but like, come on, an hour and a half. And they said, oh, yeah, I've just checked. It's due to arrive at 9 p.m. Like, no.
9 p.m.
Like I ordered this at 6:30. Like you can't say 9 p.m. that's like, and then say I can't cancel it. Okay, I have to pull out the big guns. So I said, you do know I have rights under the Australian consumer law, don't you? So I do expect a full refund. Otherwise, a big, strong consumer and you want to flex your muscles. And then like the chat just disappeared. I got the equivalent of being hung up on by a chatbot. And then my blood boiled.
So what happened? You haven't got your money back then?
Well, then, so like there was no way to contact menu log. The food came eventually. It's just before 9 o'clock now. Don't use menu log. And what happened
is that sponsor.
So Uber Eats, DoorDash, we've got room for another sponsor.
We've obviously revealed that we will actively slag off the competition. So give us a call. I've had lots of experiences with either really late food, like you've said, or cancellations at the last moment, right?
Oh, cancellations at the last moment.
It's so bad, right? It's just like, they have the food and for whatever reason, they've decided, it's not worth it. I'm just going to cop the fine or whatever it is or not get paid or whatever. I've always wondered what happens in that regard, right? Because I called the restaurant one time. It was taking ages and the driver was allocated and all that kind of stuff. And then he pulled out at the last minute. It just said that driver's cancelled. That's it. And I called up the restaurant. They're like, oh, yeah, he's got the food. I'm like, well, he's not my driver anymore. He's done a run. Like, what happens? Is that like, I don't know, is that the ultimate gig economy? Like, I'm just going to round up, earn some bucks, but then the last meal I'm just going to eat and then leave and never come back?
That's one way to
business model. Yeah, but I've had that heaps of times, but that was through Uber Eats, and they have a lot of cancel options and things like that. But it doesn't help because you don't have your food. And if you're the kind of person who has had Uber Eats, you're obviously not prepared. Like you're not. It's not like, oh well, I'll just whip something up. It's like, no, I ordered Uber Eats because I don't have my life together and I don't have any other options. So if you cancel on me, like I'm fucked.
I mean, I get the whole thing that Uber at the end of the day is just connecting you with like a driver, right? And that's their business model, right? They're not employees or anything like that. So at one level, you can't quite attack Uber for cancelling like or being negligent or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, hey, I don't care what you do behind the scenes. I've paid you money. I expect the food to come, right? And on time and at the time you said. Like, if your algorithm sucks, then don't make a commitment that you can do it. Get out of business. Like, anyway, I just think, I mean, the other one we have is, because we're in an apartment block, from time to time we'll get like a really lazy delivery rider. And like, sorry, I just want to say as an aside, like, I think most delivery riders, like I try and be like super nice to, and even give a tip every now and then and all that stuff, because I think, you know, they don't necessarily get paid all that much and they work pretty hard and whatever else. So, but there are some that are just absolute like there's a reason, like there's a reason they're doing that and not something else, because like anyway, so they'll just leave the food on the street, like, because they can't be bothered to walk in to come into the unit, and we say no, come to our unit, whatever, and they just leave it on the road. I'm like, no, that's not good enough. You got to bring it to the door. Like, you can get anyway. That's my other pet peeve.
I mean, on just like another thing though, like, don't you think that it's always so unsatisfying because the food's not that hot? Don't you find that though? And like, you've just kind of lowered your expectations because of the convenience of it. Because if I'm honest with myself, right, like, you never really get hot food from Uber Eats, never. Or any delivery service, right? So say if you're ordering a burger and fries, it's not going to be like, it's going to be a shell of itself from eating it at the restaurant.
Oh, like, absolutely. But that goes for like takeaway more generally, but then Uber Eats is just another level of like quality degrade sort of thing. But one of the other things that's happened to me before, I ordered a pizza, got the pizza, and like, it was just like the box, and then this just like mush of like compacted pizza down one side of the box. Like, so whoever was
doing donuts in the car.
Yeah, and they were like, it's like they thought they had, I've got like 3 pizzas to deliver. I know a really efficient way to take them. I'll just put them upside down or on the side and strap them to the bike that way. That'll be really good. And actually, like, to the credit of Uber Eats, when you do have these issues, like, well, I find anyway, I can't speak for any other people's experience, but when I have a problem, Uber doesn't even question the story. They just like, here's your refund, like, straight away. And they're super fast. Like, their business model is just to trust you. And I suppose they've got algorithms to figure out if you're taking the piss or whatever. But like, that's how it works. So if they do have these little mishaps from time to time, that's your insurance policy as a consumer. So you're confident to keep using it, right? So, but it doesn't, as you say, it doesn't fix that. What are we having for dinner though?
I just think also some foods travel better than others, right? Like Asian foods and Thai foods, they're fine. You can, or, you know, they can handle the travel, but burgers and chips especially, like, I think that's an Uber Eats phenomenon, right? Like, people didn't really do as much takeaway in that manner before.
Yeah.
It was mainly like Thai food and pizzas. And pizzas actually do travel really well because they have their little hot packs or whatever portable oven that the guy's riding on his e-bike or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think everyone's being tricked a little bit, or just their psychology's been hacked because they're too lazy and too overwhelmed by the end of the day.
Yeah. So did you get your pamphlet in the mail?
I did, actually. Well, I have a very bad habit of not checking the mail. I've always been like that. I just kind of feel like anything that comes to you, that's served to you, that has one of those little transparent little letterbox things, nothing good comes from that, ever. Like, nothing. So I just really hate checking the mail, and I never do. But my parents actually, you know, like most people of that generation, religiously check the mail. And so one day I just came down and was sitting there on the kitchen table. What about you?
Yeah, so we are talking about the pamphlet for the yes/no vote on The Voice.
I thought you were talking about the prep pamphlet.
Oh, I'm not on that mailing list.
I thought I got off, but I'm back on.
So actually, it's funny you say you never check the mail, because I never check the mail either. And in fact, I don't know if I got my pamphlet because I haven't checked the mail. So, no, but seriously, like,
I think you must be like our generation.
But all you get in the letterbox is either a bill or junk mail, right? Like, do people even send like letters of just like, people don't send letters anymore? You know what I mean? The ones you want to read.
I used to get this Happy Chinese New Year from my local government member. And I thought to myself, is he just like pulling out all the Asian last names in his electorate and like sending them? Because I spoke to my friend who lived in the area who was white, and they didn't receive one. It's like, I don't know how I feel
true.
about that.
It's totally what happens.
I'm down with the Asians.
So we got the official pamphlet. So it's actually like, just as we've been speaking, I pulled it up, off the AEC website. So if anyone wants to look at it, you can download it from aec.gov.au. And it's a pretty bland document, right? It's not an exciting document. It's not like, there's no pictures of like, I don't know, dying children if you don't vote yes, or vice versa if you do vote yes. It's just black and white. It's like, I don't know, some shade of official government shade of grey. Yeah, I haven't read it because I've just pulled it up now, but what did you think of it?
Yeah, it felt a little bit icky, to be honest, but like for the wrong reasons. I think that, I feel like it's their version of trying to strip the branding off cigarettes. They're like, we can't allow
plain package.
Yeah, plain packaging. Right? Like we can't allow anything, right? Like I do not want to like be manipulated by a disadvantaged like Indigenous youth, right? As soon as like or whatever may happen like on the other side, right? So I think that they've just gone, okay, you literally have print and that's it, right? So I think it is good in a way, but it's very, very easy to kind of push aside. And I think that's the problem with it, right? Like I don't think it's going to reach the right audience. So that's number one, right? Now, when it comes to the format, I actually haven't seen anything like that before where it's literally, it reads left to right. So like each page has the case for voting yes on the left and the immediate case for voting no on the right. And so, yeah, I've never really seen that before. But the problem is they don't really match up because they've been written and constructed from two very different sides that obviously haven't really communicated that much. So like, yeah, like I kind of, it is generally like obviously explaining why you should vote yes or why you should vote no, but they're not really having a debate or an argument. They're like next to each other, shouting into the void.
I must admit, I'm having a look at the two sides now. So a few episodes, I don't know what episode number it was, but we had our episode on The Voice, and I think we landed in favour of voting yes, but we did have some sort of aspects of it that we were a little bit unsure about. But I must admit, I'm just looking at the no side versus the yes. I got to say, like maybe to throw it to you, there's one that's much more compelling to me, at least superficially, than the other. Do you have any thoughts on which side did a better job? Yeah,
look, I mean, I think to me, absolutely, the no summary hits a bit harder, and that's just because like the nature of like it just pops a bit more, right? Because they're using negative words that invoke a bit of meaning, and in some ways, maybe it's the bold text as well, right? Like, for example, on the first page for yes, they have things like voting yes is about in a medium text recognition, listening, better results. Right? Now, these are all things that, of course we want recognition, listening, and better results, but whatever, right? They're kind of like motherhood statements. Mm. And then you pan to the right, and in bigger, bolder capital text, it has risky, unknown, divisive, and permanent. And then it says, this voice is legally risky. And like, they've done it so much better because like the text is bigger, it's all caps, and they're stronger words. So immediately you're like, oh my God. And even the way that they've put 10 reasons to vote no, it's like, oh man, this is like the 10 commandments. They're like getting biblical here, right?
But it's like, there's not just one reason to vote no. We've got 10 for you.
Yeah, I don't even want to read all 10, but just the fact that you said that you had 10, I believe you.
I mean, the yes side of the pamphlet, you're totally right about the motherhood statements. It doesn't... The funny thing is, like, how can a voter make any sense of this, right? Point 4 in the yes pamphlet says, bring our country, it like brings our country together. And then in the no, it says, it's divisive, right? So it's like, how, like, it divides us, right? Literally, like, I do think, I mean, so to begin with, you're right about like a negative campaign, I think is much easier to run than a positive one, right? So that's built in, but a lot of the stuff that we talked about has come to fruition, right? Like the scare campaigns, the just not being able to communicate. The support's eroded since we had that episode. And I think, some of the commentary we made around like the way it was run and that they didn't build like enough consensus before they pulled the trigger. I think they failed really. I can't see the referendum succeeding. I don't think those in the yes camp have any idea how to convince the rest of Australia to communicate it, like how out of touch some of the like those out there campaigning on the street are. Like, so you'll see like in my mind, like the classic person that I'm thinking of is this, I don't know, someone in their 60s, like basically a boomer hippie who seen themselves as progressive, usually like, I don't know, like a 60-year-old woman with short grey hair with like these earrings, like these big over-the-top earrings, maybe even purple hair or something like that, wearing some funky sweater, holding up a big vote yes sign, and not realizing that like that person being a representative for the yes vote is actually going to turn people off voting yes, because the people who like are in middle Australia see this as like an inner city elite kind of lefty, obsessed lefty thing, right? And if it's portrayed in that way, that's going to discourage people from voting for it just because of how they perceive it and all the connotations of, the proponents of it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I totally agree, right? And I think that, unfortunately, I will have to agree that this referendum doesn't look like it's going to get up in terms of the metrics that are around there, and even just, like the feeling of the people that I've spoken to as well. I will say that the no side of the pamphlet has been constructed very well. They could have gotten a lot harder and a lot more on the offensive, and they haven't. And when you read it collectively, it does sound very measured, right? But very effective as well in the way that they put the 10 reasons. And I think that what I quite liked about it is that they had a section on at the end, right? So let me just scroll to it. It says that there are better ways forward, right? And I think that was like quite a good line that they ended on. So they said, number 9, the voice will be permanent, and 10, there are better ways forward. And then they finished like the coup de grace. They finished with this line in bold saying, if you don't know, vote no. And I thought that, okay, they must have been dying to put something more slogany up the top, but they showed restraint and they waited to the end. And it's the equivalent of, the OJ line, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit, right? It's just like that catchy little thing that is like, yeah, that kind of sums it up, right? Like, and I was reflecting on our episode about the voice, and we had a bit of a back and forth about strategically, is it better to provide more information or less? And I think, tipping my hat to you, I think that they definitely messed that up. And you can see how they're attacking it here, right? If you don't know, vote no. There's too many unknowns, too much risk. And I think they're playing into that quite well without going too negative.
Are you still, in your view, inclined to vote yes, or have you had a change in your attitude since we last spoke about it?
Look, I think that I'm still inclined to vote yes, but I will say that since we recorded that episode, my company and a few other sources that along the way have held much more in-depth conversations with a range of Indigenous representation. And I must say that the people that are talking about the no vote from the Indigenous side have kind of nudged me and my thinking a little bit differently as well. That actually, that this is not potentially the way forward. And I guess from that episode, the reason that I voted a reluctant yes was much more about the divisive nature and how do we take a step forward to something else and not leave any more lasting damage and trauma. So it was more about that rather than me thinking this is the right way forward. So I must say that I'm still in that camp, but I do worry a little bit, like what kind of scars this will leave us when it ultimately fails, right?
It doesn't look good, right? I mean, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, right? You can have very nuanced and legitimate reasons either way. But just like, you can imagine the headlines like internationally, Australia votes no for, because it's also constitutional recognition as well. Although I'm not sure if it's the same question or there's two. Actually, I'm not sure how they're structuring the vote, but it just sounds so bad. Australia votes no, votes against Indigenous Australia. Like, doesn't look good. But I think actually, you know what? Like, I'll double down on some of the things I said in the last episode when we discussed it. I really do think the government, the federal government, hasn't handled this the right way. They've done it for political reasons, and I think that's what's most disappointing. It reminds me a little bit of the Greens voting down an emissions trading scheme because it wasn't perfect in their eyes. It was imperfect, but imagine if they voted in favour of it, we'd have an emissions trading scheme. Now we don't have anything. So it's kind of, I think, when you play politics on these things, it blows up in your face. So I think they should have taken the time to make sure that both sides of politics, were kind of on the same page and there was consensus, but they just wanted to, I don't know, it's like they were exuberant and they'd won an election and they just pushed forward with it. And
like we said in that episode, it was hard to tell whether Albanese actually had a mandate to push this through. I wasn't sure how much of a platform he ran on this. But look, I want to read, and again, it looks like we're being quite negative on the Yes campaign here. But I do want to read an element of number 10, right? Because I think this is, as like you said, that middle Australian reading this, how they would respond in a very according way, right? So let me read this to the listeners, right? So number 10 is in the no side is there are better ways forward. This referendum is not about simply recognising Indigenous Australians in the Constitution. That can be achieved without tying it to a risky, unknown and permanent voice. Recognition has widespread support of Australians. However, this voice proposal is the problem. There are many Australians who oppose a voice on principle. Others might be willing to consider a less risky voice option, but the government has not given you this choice. When previous changes to the Constitution have been proposed, there has been a constitutional convention to properly consider options and details. No such process happened here. This process was rushed and heavy-handed. This approach isn't unifying or effective. It's divisive. Like, that's pretty... See what I mean? Like, you could have made that so much more scathing and negative, right? Talk about incompetence and about political gamesmanship and all this kind of stuff. But those are the facts, right? Like, those are the raw facts. And it doesn't read well. It's like very damning in like you said, in how the government's handled this. And I don't know too many like middle Australians that would read that and disagree.
Just to go to the equivalent points on in the yes camp, what the legal experts say, constitutionally and legally sound, will enhance our system of government. No veto power. The Parliament and government have final sign-off. Then goes to cite a Chief Justice of the High Court and Professor of Law. The voice is a big idea, but not a complicated one. It's low risk for high return. The voice will provide a practical opportunity for First Peoples to give informed and coherent and reliable advice to the Parliament and government.
Yeah.
When you have to quote, like... people like, I mean, don't these people realize that the average Australian is actually distrusts this idea that experts kind of should be telling them how to live their life and what they should want and not want? Like, haven't we learned anything from COVID? That
Yeah. I also love the number 5 on the Yes campaign where it has save money. Just the gall, like, of putting that there. Like...
oh, God. Just all right, let's move on to other more brighter topics. This week's book week, I think. I'm not sure if it's like book week or month or how it works, but I understand, well, I know that we have had book week in this household, and I understand you did as well. Tell me, what's book week?
Yeah, look, book week is, I don't know why it's a whole week, number one.
Book day doesn't sound as good.
No, book day sounds horrible, but it's a bit of a celebration of literature and reading and all this kind of like literacy. And what it culminates in, I suppose, is a parade where parents are obviously shanghaied into dressing up their children, their primary school children especially, in a favorite book character. Right now, everything is technically a book, right? And so there's obviously a bit of a onus on the parent to try to find a character which is appropriate and not dress up as like, the book version of the Marvel Avengers or whatever it is, but that does prop up and make it into a glorified Halloween session at school. But that's kind of, I think, where a lot of the stress comes now. There's a lot of different events along the way, like that they celebrate books, and I think that that's a good thing. But the star of the show is definitely, you know, the dressing up as your favorite book character. How did it go down in your household?
Yeah, so just to speak to the different characters and that, like, I've got to say, like, at least 1 in 2 characters were not from a book at my son's school parade. And the other thing we noticed creeping in was these really, like, kind of leaps of faith to try and connect sports colours, like sports identities into the book week. So they'd, like, for example, someone would go dressed up as, you know, they'd put on their Wallabies jersey or something, and then they'd have the John Eels biography in the parade, you know, just to prove that, see, it's book, it's connected to a book. No, we had a few Matildas. We had like girls with I presume it was Matildas or Socceroos. Anyway, Australian soccer team, you know, shirt on. There's a few kids that play ice hockey in his school, so they were like wore their ice hockey gear. Kids with like soccer boots. I was like, how is this like
it's getting out of hand?
Yeah. Then we had the like video game characters as well. So like a few like Mario, Luigi's and stuff. And then, like, as you say, like the Marvel costumes are big and all that. But book, yeah, it was exactly as you say, like a glorified Halloween, you know, costume party. Apart from that, you know, the bit less scary. But yeah, in terms of the household, our challenge was that, well, we had enough like advance notice, right? But my son really wanted to go as this really complicated character. It's like this animatronic character, and so when you're talking about costumes, you can go as simple as, all right, well, we'll print off like a picture of the character's face and we'll print it off and put it on some cardboard and you hold it up against your face and we'll, you know, keep it simple.
Yeah.
But my son, he's all like, oh no, we've got to go and 3D print the mask off. We've got to get some foam to sculpt the foam costume, the body suit or whatever. And we need like, I need to get like these snow globes to make the eyes, like, you know, we've got to have some lighting for the eyes. And we're not making this. It's going to take like 100 hours of time.
Becomes like a cosplay festival. And
just as an aside, like even like, I mean, we slowly killed the 3D printing proposal we went actually into the shop like to try and just at least find out what it would cost to 3D print it. And it ended up being like a couple of $100 to print like a mask. And then, but before that, it was showing me which, like, we were looking at, you can download files. And the one I found, I thought, we could probably print that. It was like one piece that, you know, it would be simple, I guess. But they said, oh, no, I don't want that one. And then he shows me the one he wants, and it's like got like 20 constituent parts that you have to connect together. And then it's like, oh, God. Anyway, so long story short, I did buy him, you know, from Stranger Things, there's like the Hellfire. Yeah, like it's, I don't know, there's a Hellfire Club in Stranger Things. Anyway, I bought him that. I thought, okay, just whack on a shirt. That'll do. And he didn't want to do it. So he just went in mufti and that was it. So anyway, so
really? He
well, he wanted to
out of it.
Yeah, he did. He said, if I can't go as my special animatronic figure, I don't want to go as anything. So
go hard or go home.
Yeah. Anyway, how about you?
Yeah, look, my daughter went as a quite obscure little character. So I think, you know, most of us wouldn't realize, but it was specific to a particular kids series. That's not that well known. So that was easy, just like some wings on the back and like a wand and things like that. So that was okay. I did go to the parade though at the school, right? And I don't know, have you been to the parades before?
I was at a parade this morning.
Oh, you were? Okay. Well, yeah. So I went to one to see my daughter and dress up and so on. And essentially, they walk around the quadrangle in a very regimented line. They go from, you know, youngest to oldest, and the teachers have to go, and the teachers just look like they're just like dead on their feet, right? And I know from many different sources, reliable sources, that book week is a stressful week for teachers. They're expected to pressured into doing all these different things with their own costumes, and then they have to deal with the kids. The kids are extra rowdy because they're all in, you know, essentially it's like Halloween for them, like we said. So they hate it. And I saw them kind of like parade around, and just like I could just see the the light slowly flickering off from their eyes. They're just like, and they were all dressed up as like the Mr. Men characters. So obviously, like they just had these big cardboard cutouts and things, and they were all like pretty somber, except for one male teacher who was like Mr. Strong, and he had like a full-on foam muscle suit and like some fake barbells, and he was like cartwheeling around the quadrangle, doing like one-handed push-ups and like pretending to lift things, and he's like not reading the room at all, like not matching anyone's energy. He was just like going off, and it was hilarious. It's like, dude, you're already like the one or two male teachers out of all the females, and you're just running amok. I love it. But yeah, there were a lot of Marvel characters, I must admit too.
You know what really bugs me about Book Week, like apart from the fact that, I don't know, whoever came up with it, like the idea of dressing up, like do they realize we don't have time to do this stuff? Like that this is like everyone's time poor, and you throwing, or whoever is coming up with it, whether it's the school or whoever's idea, because as you say, the teachers probably don't like it either. Whoever's idea it is to make all these kids dress up in costumes have no idea how much productivity drag they have on the economy. I just think it's like we don't need another, like we've now got Halloween, we've got Book Week. It's like we don't need another one of these, like, and the other thing I find with it, and I'm interested to hear how you feel about it given your new stay-at-home dad duties, but it takes an event like Book Week to show like the disparity of like spare time that some parents have. So you can tell if a kid comes with this really elaborate costume that's had a lot of work put into it and looks brilliant and amazing, the kid hasn't done it, it's the parents that have done it. And the parents that volunteer and really into P&C and all that stuff, like some of them have jobs too, so they kind of do both. But like it should be okay to not want to get into that stuff. Like it should be okay to just have a view that, look, my life's busy, I'll send my kid to school, but it doesn't mean that like I have to get into all that extra stuff as well. Like it, but like they're always sort of like a little bit judgy, we're doing a working bee, if you'd like to come, sort of thing. So I think, nah, actually, I'm busy on the weekend. Like, I don't want to come and fucking garden at the school. Like, I want to garden in my garden because it needs to be gardened before I bloody go and garden in a school. Like, Department of Education can pay some money to clean it up. Why do I pay my taxes?
I think, like you said, it's a social status thing, right? It's like a keeping up with the Joneses. It's about how involved you are. Now, look, I mean, I think that judgment just is part of it, right? When parents get together. It's like a microcosm of this is when there's some kind of mufti day, right? Where kids are dressed in casuals instead of their school uniform. And you're the parent that forgot about it and sent their kid in with the uniform. And now they have to walk around the schoolyard all day with with like standing out.
Do you know what's worse than forgetting to wear mufti on a mufti day? Coming to school in your school clothes on costume parade day.
Yeah. And look, at the parade that I went to, there was a fair few that were in their sports uniform, right? So I don't know whether that was like their version of mufti or they had totally forgot about it.
They only have two sets of clothes.
Yeah, I don't know. At the home and away uniforms. But I think it's just, look, I mean, also we're talking about public schools here, right? So I can only imagine if you were in some kind of like posh private school, like how amped up this would be, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if there were, groups of parents who got together and used like costume designers and stuff like that, and had them,
they'd all be rented and like bought. Like they wouldn't. I can't imagine them like doing any real effort to make them. But
well, you say that, but actually, like I think it's some of the, I won't name the names, but some of the private schools actually have on their staff like costume designers for the drama and like the dramatic arts, right? They actually have a seamstress or a costumes person. Isn't that crazy? Given that for a public school you can't even find the uniform, you have to go to like a Lowe's or something. They don't even have like a uniform shop.
All right, so are you in mourning?
Are you talking about the mushroom lady?
No, I'm talking about the plane crash.
Oh, so sorry, man. I don't think I know this one. Which is this story?
So you know the Wagner group guy, Prigozhin?
Yeah.
Like, did you see the plane crash?
No, I think I missed this one. I do know.
So this is big news today. So this is the Wagner group dude, like the guy that led the coup.
Yeah.
And he Putin shot his plane down.
Oh, he's actually dead?
Yeah.
That motherfucker. How does he do it?
So he was flying in a plane, I think, from St. Petersburg to Moscow or something like that. And he was shot down by, I guess Putin ordered his plane to be downed, and he's dead.
How does he keep doing it, Putin? I mean, this guy had him on the ropes.
Well, there aren't too many people who displease Putin that don't end up pushed out of a building or poisoned or whatever else. So, I don't like. You'd be pretty brave. I must admit,
though, that's why I question that when he had all that momentum to use the Wagner troops to stage the coup and to push back territory and actually threaten the march on the Kremlin. Why did he roll over, knowing full well that this would essentially lead to some kind of conflict like this?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, well, who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but it does seem so. One of the pieces I read said Putin had to choose something dramatic for him because he was such a traitor. So he didn't get it didn't get poisoned off the tip of an umbrella. That's saved for the low victims. Then pushing out of the building, maybe. But no, we'll
dramatic fashion. So who is actually leading the Wagner group now? Then?
Well, I think who
is his successor?
Well, I think one of his offsiders, the director of operations, or God knows what they're called, was also on the plane. So there's actually two that died from that group. But I must admit, I don't really know anything more about it, their current role and how it all. I've lost track a bit of the conflict, but it just seems to be just like I tell you what, it does seem like. It does seem like when in World War II, when there was sort of a period where things went really well early on for Germany, and then once it started to appear like maybe their strategy wasn't going to work and it was actually going to be a real uphill battle, then you started to see a few cracks emerge. And yeah, I think that's kind of, this just feeds into that. I mean, this isn't another battlefield victory for Russia like Ukraine. This is something that's happened in Russia in response to the chain of events of a really stupid and bad decision to invade Ukraine. So
yeah. But saying that though, I'm obviously playing catch up here. They haven't found the body, so he's assumed dead, right? But
yeah, well, there's some speculation about is he really dead? But I suppose if you wanted to fake your own death, you could do it. But it does seem probably not the best way to fake your own death because planes don't just drop out of the sky, right? So there has to be some
collateral damage.
You have to. It has to be plausible, right? It has to be. I don't know. He went for a swim and he didn't return or something. I don't know. It can't be.
Yeah, the old Jeff Buckley.
Yeah, it just seems like a little bit too artificial if it weren't real. So I'm kind of inclined to think that he's dead, and not to buy into. I have no immediate reason to buy into any conspiracy theories, but it's just another one of those interesting developments in this war. Which I mean, it's probably not right for us to sort of treat it as kind of soap opera gossip. It's obviously a serious thing affecting many lives, but yeah, just God, what a train wreck.
It's gone on for so long now. I remember when we recorded the Ukraine episode, I thought, so much is going to change and things are going to kind of twist and turn, but really it's forming that kind of attrition. And it's just looking hopeless, and the news coverage is now very patchy. So speaking of mourning, did you watch the news coverage of the mushroom poisoning case and the lady? I mean, they got some pretty good stills from this lady in terms of her feeling sorry for her actions. Have you been following that one?
Look, following it, I'm across it, but I've got to say, she is a cartoon character, isn't she? Like, she's just, if you wanted to design a character who's almost a bit like, I'm just trying to think who I've got in my mind. Like, I don't know. Do you watch Fargo, like the TV series?
Yeah. It's in that kind of universe.
Yeah, and like, there's a character in I think it's the most recent season where with the nurse. Do you know the nurse that I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
And she's like secretly like murdering everybody. Like, she gives me that kind of vibe. Like, she's sort of, on the face of it, like looks like she's got an IQ of about 75, but like either she does have an IQ of 75 and that led to her thinking this was a good idea to kill people for whatever reason, or she's like this serial killer that's like plays like the sweet, innocent, harmless sort of imbecile, but she's like, yeah, a serial killer in the nighttime.
Or this is really quite out of turn, but there are some stills of her where she looks quite like Julie Goodwin, who won the first season of MasterChef Australia. Sorry, Julie. But it's just the right angle. I'm like, she's about to kill someone, or is she about to win MasterChef?
So perhaps maybe just for anyone who's not really sure of the context of this, do you want to give like a bit of an overview of the saga, the mushroom saga?
Well, I think, what is it? So at the heart of the poisoning lies a traditional British dish, a beef Wellington. And this kind of, I guess, what do you call her? Mother of two, maybe? Erin Patterson. She served up this dish and, to a bunch of people, including her parents-in-law, and a local pastor. And essentially this dish had mushrooms in it that were death caps, and 6 days later, I think 2 or 3 of her guests would go on to pass away. Yeah. Over the course of the next kind of 2 to 3 days, right? So obviously death caps are incredibly poisonous. I think they're one of the most poisonous mushrooms on the planet. And basically she's kind of playing she's playing the victim in all this, saying that she didn't know, she got sick as well, and her kids got sick. And actually, it was just a dodgy Asian supermarket that gave her the mushrooms. And I'm like, it's probably a bit low to go after the Asians, but I probably would believe it if it was anyone.
It does seem like the thing. Oh, like I'm a bit hot under the collar here. I know. I'll blame Miracle Mart.
I couldn't read the packet.
It was in Chinese. Yeah, I mean, like, so I guess there's a couple of other you painted almost a generous picture of the circumstances. There's a few other kind of incriminating details, including she didn't eat it. Her and her children didn't die. So even though apparently they were at the same or involved in the same dinner setting, I don't know if so it was her parents-in-law, but like it was her ex. I think they're like separated, or there's something a bit weird going on. Like, I'm not sure usually like if parents still like hang out with their their children's like ex-partner or whatever, if that's the thing. But anyway, that aside,
it's definitely not.
That aside, there's a weird thing about how her former partner, the son of the parents who died, was in hospital last year with like the same kind of thing. He survived, but it's not the first time something like this has happened. And then there's like I think there was like a food processor that was like rushed and thrown away, and it was located in a tip that she mysteriously lost. Then there's a couple of other things, like some house that she rented. There was like all this writing on the wall saying like, "I'm going to kill you," and like all these cartoon drawings of just with all this creepy
I haven't heard that
stuff.
last one. Oh, that's like a movie. There's definitely going to be a daytime movie about this lady.
Totally. It's ripe for it. This is like a Netflix special if I've ever seen one. or a true crime. But like this is true crime with a twist, right? You can jazz this up with a bit of comedy in the way that you can't some of the other true crime series on Netflix. So yeah, but see, the thing is, like, the police can't arrest her for really anything because, or certainly. So I suppose, right, the first is like there's a few scenarios. One, it could be like she had nothing to do with it, so it could be there was some other thing that's happened. It could be yes, she was involved in serving it, but completely unknowingly. It could be, like you say, like she says, like the Asian Mart sort of mushrooms. That could be actually what happened. Then there could be like another scenario in between where yes, it wasn't. No, they weren't mushrooms from the Asian Mart. She did go like foraging for mushrooms, and she found these mushrooms that she thought was good, and she actually genuinely fucked up. But she's blaming it on others. But it was quite innocent. Or it could be like, no, I want you dead.
I don't know. This lady has more smoke around her than Kevin Spacey, if I'm honest.
Did you see the that show? So like this that true crime documentary, The Staircase?
Yeah, I did.
Did you see the dramatization of it, like with Toni Collette and I can't remember who else was in it, but
was it Colin Firth or someone?
Yeah. Did you watch that?
No, and I didn't actually. Would have watched it if I didn't watch the original series, but I felt like putting myself through that actual documentary was enough, and I didn't want to go back there.
Well, the one unique thing they do in that in the dramatization is that they actually show you 3 different models of like scenarios of how she died, and like. Well, for anyone who doesn't know this show, it's like this guy, he's like a bit of an eccentric character, and his wife dies, and it's like he actually went to jail, like that he murdered her, but then he actually got out of jail eventually. Sorry, no, that's probably spoiling the plot line, but anyway, it's a really good series, but it shows the whole saga of the whole thing. But the most one of the most out there kind of theories is that like an owl flew into the house, and
an owl,
yeah, like haven't you heard the owl theory?
No.
So this is like legit, like one of the theories for the staircase, like that particular case, was that an owl flew into the house or was already in the house for some reason, and then got its claws into, like, because they're trying to explain how she had all these lacerations, and that the claws like lacerated her scalp, and then that caused her to like fall over and all that sort of stuff. And then there's like the other scenario where she just genuinely just falls, like trips and falls, but then falls in such a violent way that she gets all the scars and all the, everything that happened to her. But they show both, like they
recreate it with the owl.
Yeah, it's like a dramatization. It just looks.
But why an owl? Why so specific? Like
because the reason is because, well, first, like, okay, so they're trying to think of like what's the alternate explanation, right? And there's certain lacerations that she had, so that covers that. But I think the reason it came up as like a legit like kind of theory was they did find, I think, some feathers in the sort of, I'm a bit hazy on the details, but they did actually find like these owl feathers either in her like body or in the surrounding area. So it was like, well, this all points, and apparently it has happened. Like something like this has happened before. So
where at Hogwarts, like was an owl is already in the house waiting for her.
Anyway, but
I thought owls were peaceful.
But that's a long way of looping this back to the mushroom story. Is that I think they should make a similar series, but with like the same 3 scenarios, like how she did it, like what actually happened, because like only she knows. She's the only one that knows.
Yeah,
and she's not going to tell anyone if she murdered. Like,
but I don't understand why. Like, if obviously this is not a major thing, right? But if it really was, do you think that the surveillance capability of Australia or the USA could actually piece this together. If it was of national interest, they could actually like tap the phones, satellite, like all these different things. Do you think that they could put it together and answer these questions?
Do you mean like retrospectively, like for past events?
Yeah, like pull the mobile data, pull the messages, the phone calls, get satellite, CT, surveillance and all this kind of stuff. Could they do it, do you think?
I think they don't retain much data though. Like isn't the whole problem that they just don't, like, sure there's like cameras and stuff, but they don't just
have the storage to kind
of they're not
all.
like, and I don't know, maybe that's something that will change in the future, but like it does seem that's I mean like that, but that's a totally plausible proposition that they'll come up with something like that.
Even just the messages, right? Like if she truly is how she presents with like a sub 80 IQ, like you said, surely she's left a paper trail, like 10 miles wide. She's got like receipts from, where she bought the mushrooms or calls, or she's asking someone, or she's done some research. Like someone pulled this lady's Google searches. I bet you.
See, it's just everything's just super shady with this.
I don't know whether you've found this, and maybe I'm just a bit more aware about it because of all this, like, explosion about psychedelics and psilocybin and all this kind of stuff from mushrooms. But what it has shown to me is that there is a thriving and very, very passionate mushroom like enthusiast body out there that just love mushrooms like you and I would love, like, dogs or like other things. Like they have this real passion for it, and they believe that they're alive and that they are almost like a higher life form. And I bet that these people are all over it. They're like volunteering hours of their free time to like take this lady down because she's giving such a bad name to mushrooms.
Maybe they planted it. A revenge for last year's mushroom incident. All right. So we better call it a day today. So another episode of, what are we calling this one?
Last week's news today.
Last week's news today. Okay, well, episode 2.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Ciao.